Hey, welcome back to DIY Fidget Spinner YouTube channel, Facebook page, whatever you're on. Thanks for joining me today. Today we're going to be going over fidget spinner buttons again. Last time we went over how to make a fidget spinner button that had the hole all the way through the button, as you can see right there. And this way the dowel shows, it gives it a nice little detail there. And we also showed you how to concave these out so that it's a little bit of recess there. Now this time we're going to do it so there is no hole, right? There is a hole to hold the dowel, but the hole doesn't go all the way through. It's a little bit different technique, so I thought I'd create a short video on how to do this. So there's a couple different things you need to do. First thing is you need to drill a hole for the dowel. You also need to drill a hole for the recess, and this recess is for the washer, and I'll go in what that's for here in a second. And last time we used 1/4 inch wood, and this time we're going to be using 1/8 inch, which is a lot skinnier. It's half the thickness. So if you can see that, right? So very thin tolerances here that we have to deal with. To do this, we need a 5/16 drill bit because the hole inside of a bearing is, the center is 5/16. It's actually 7 millimeters, but the same size metrically in the English units. We're also going to have a Forstner bit and for your washer, and this is going to be the outside diameter of the Forstner bit. I've got two different size washers here, so I have two different size Forstner bits. Now, critical things with this washer is, it has to fit over the dowel, right? The next critical thing is when you place it on the spinner bit or spinner bearing, this outside edge of the washer cannot touch the outside edge of the bearing. If you do, you're going to cause friction, because when you spin your spinner, the inside is what holds still, the outside is the one that's actually rotating around, if you can see that. So if the washer were large enough to touch both of those at the same time, then you'd be creating a friction point, and that's no good, right? So that's what we're going to do today, and it's basically going to look exactly like this 1/8 inch, but I'm sorry, this is a 1/4 inch, and we're going to make it 1/8 this time. So let's get started. Let's move some of this stuff out of the way. I've already set up my drill press. The three different drill bits that you need for this are a 25 millimeter or a 1-inch hole drill cutting saw. You also need the 5/16 inch, and then you need a this happens to be a, I think it's a 13 millimeter, which is the outside of this washer right here. I also have a 19 millimeter, which is the outside of this washer, and these are both Forstner bits. So let's put those aside, and what we're going to do is, this is a right angle jig. So this piece of wood and this piece of wood are exactly at a right angle right here. This is just a piece of scrap, and this is just the bottom of the jig right here. The whole point is to put this piece of wood in here, and it holds it at a nice right angle. Now, I've moved the jig so that this bit, it is exactly in the center, or right against this edge and this edge, so it's not going to move anywhere. The platform is secure, and the jig is secured to the platform, so we're not going anywhere. Next thing we need to do is take this out. So we're not going to drill with it yet. We're going to take this out, and we're going to drill with the 5/16 inch bit. Now what we're going to do though is, we're not going to drill all the way through. What we want is just a nice little recess, and it takes a little bit of playing around with, but what you can do is just put a scrap piece of wood there, and you're going to go down, and then on your drill press you're going to back it up a little bit, just like that. Let me zoom in a little bit so you can see. So it went all the way down, and then I backed off just a hair, and then what you do is you set your stop. Let's go up here, zoom back out, so you can see right here you've got to stop this little set screw. This rotates around, so wherever my depth is, I'm going to set my set screw, right? So now that's locked. So now I can't go any deeper than this. Even if I wanted to, the stop kind of stops it from going down. That's the whole point of it. So I've already drilled out a bunch of these, but I'll show you how it works. Put this back in the center here. This is just a scrap piece of wood that I have. So, turn on. And that's it. Can't go any further. So now we've got a nice little recess there. I've already done that on a bunch of wood here. So the next thing is we're going to replace this bit. And we're going to put in the smaller of the Forstner bits. Clean the platform off. And we're going to set this Forstner bit in here. And we're kind of going to do the same thing, except we're going to throw a piece of wood in there. Now, we don't want to go so deep that we lose the first one. That's the trick here, right? So we want to go deep enough that we can cut a recess, but we don't want to go so deep that we ruin out this. And we're going to try it a couple different ways. This dowel will fit just in there, and I'm barely getting a grip on there, if you can see that. Okay, so this may not work. So what we may need to wind up doing is just drilling out our button with, and put the washer on there with no recess. But I'd like to get this recessed a little tiny bit if we can. So we're going to play around with this and see how much wood we can leave behind. And let's do it on a piece of purple here so you might be able to see it better. Right? And I'm just, instead of setting my depth gauge here, I'm going to actually just do this by eye. That's it. That's all you need. Perfect. So now let's take a look at this. So now we've got the washer, right? And we have the dowel that's going to fit right in that hole. Okay? One key thing, and it actually stays there, which is pretty cool. One thing is that I forgot to say, let's bring up a piece of wood so you can see the tip here. So the problem with using drill bits is this one has a slight angle of it on it, if you can see that. It's not a square edge. It's not a square tip. It's not a flat tip. So if you had a CNC bit, it wouldn't be a problem. The bottom of the hole, however, is now rounded. That causes a problem. So the bottom is actually concave. So what we would typically do is I'm going to take either a chisel or I'm going to take a screwdriver that's that same dimension. Let's go over here. I got my chisel. I'm going to stick that in the hole and I'm just going to rotate it around, trying to square off the bottom of that hole a little bit. Right? I'm going to get on as far on the outside as I can, right up to the edge. You can use a screwdriver, chisel, whatever you got there. Okay? And that'll get that that dowel in as far as possible. Additionally, it'll reduce some of the rock that you'll get on the dowel if you have a nice flat center. What you could also do is just make this a little bit convex so it fits in there. That's a real tough thing to do though, if you're not really good at, patience, which I'm not sometimes. So let's get back in here. So now what we've got is, clean this off. So let's do a couple more of these. Don't have to go very deep, that's for sure. Just want to take off that top layer there of wood. Doesn't matter whether they're different depths. So what I like to do is make as many of these buttons as I can at the same time. I've got all the wood out, I've got all the, careful, I've got all the tools out, I've got all the bits out, the jig is set up, so instead of just making one or two, I like to make as many as I can, so I don't have to go back and do it again. Notice I'm trying to clean out this angle here every single time. If any dust gets in that, then it's going to throw off your centers. So you'll see here, there was a little bit of dust on that last one and it threw this center off, whereas this one's still okay, that one's okay, that one's okay. So you got to clean out that hole. Two more to go. There you go. So now we have a recess and we've got a second recess. One for the dowel, one for the washer. Now what we're going to do is we're going to cut the button out. For this we're going to need our hole cutting jig or hole cutting bit. And now we put the piece of wood back in and turn the drill press on. There you go. Right dead center. So that is how you get the center right in the dead center. Is you have to use this jig. If you don't use the jig, then it's almost impossible to do this just by eyeballing it. Get this other one here. Obviously, it did not tighten up my truck enough. There you go. Sometimes these will get stuck up inside of them, but all these have like little channels on the side that you can get them out. So now we've got 2 buttons. Okay, I'm going to get some purple ones cut out, and then we'll show you how we finish them up here over on the sander. So you're like, where are the plugs? Plugs are right here. They got stuck up inside, so just got to kind of wiggle them out. There's one. Bonus. 2 in 1 shot. There you go. So now we've got 6 buttons. Alright. Now you notice they got all kinds of splinters on them and they're all kind of jaggedy around the edge, but that's okay. We're going to bring it over to our table and clean them up. So let's go over there. Ooh. Probably got you dizzy on that one. Now what you do is you can either take a rotary tool or just a plain old piece of sandpaper, and I try and go in the direction and just kind of smooth it out and take it on the edge and go a little bit of an angle there just to get that off there and make sure we don't have splinters. There you go. That's all it takes. And this is, it's probably 150 or 100 grit sandpaper. I don't know if you can see that, but this one went a little bit too deep right there. Honestly, it really doesn't matter because it's going to have a dowel on the other side anyway. That is yellow. Now, if you had a purple one and you didn't really want that showing up, there you go. This one's got a little bit of a hole in it too. That first drill bit went a little bit too deep, and that's okay. You can just take some sawdust and put it down in the bottom there. And that'll hide it. This is just getting all the splinters off. There you go. So now we've got 6 buttons. Pretty cool, huh? Now what we can do is you want to take your dowel and There you go. Your dowel and your bearing. And this bearing is, I believe, 8 millimeters. So what I typically do is I leave a little bit of distance on either side, and I'm going to cut this on the jigsaw. I'm going to do right about here. It's always better to be long than short. No comment there. And we will be able to put this in there and go halfway through. We're going to do cut this dowel in half again. Let's go over to the jigsaw and show you how I do that. I don't have a jigsaw, I have a scroll saw. Same thing, does the same thing. Alright, I'm just going to line it up with that line. Now what we want to do is we want to cut this in half. You get a little bit of vibration there, aren't you? There you go. Now we've got to cut this one in half. Ooh, don't lose those. There you go. Let me get those out of there so we don't lose them. Haha, salvaged them. Okay, so now we have two dowels. Let's bring those over to the sanding station. And let's get two washers. We got two washers. We have our glue. And for this one I'm going to be using the Loctite Super Glue Ultra Gel Control. And you just want to get off any splinters. Don't really need to sand these, they're not going to be viewed anywhere, seen. So now we want to put one together. So now we've got that goes here. I'm going to take my chisel, just going to give it a few twists, square out that bottom a little bit. There you go. Now I'm going to squirt some, let's clean off this tip a little bit. And you put a nice squirt in the bottom and all the way around here. Throw that on and put that in. You want to make sure that gets in that recess and it's not just sitting on the edge there. There you go. Let's do the other one. Oh no, it's going to dry too quick. There you go, that got in there. Sometimes you got to force it. So now, you just let that dry. While it's drying, I like to do some measuring and see if it's actually going to fit my bearing. So if you remember, we cut that in half, and it doesn't matter whether it's crooked or not at this point because it doesn't really matter. Okay, so what we need to do is sand that down a little bit so we can, let's get in the center so you can see this, so we can reduce that gap. So we're going to sand this down just by putting it there, and you rotate it. And you rotate it. Okay. You just need enough to keep it on the bearing. You don't need it all the way through. That's a nice tight fit. That's what I like. There you go. Let's get the other one. That is about as tight a clearance as you're going to get on some bearings. Right? So, real tight clearance here. That is maybe a quarter to a half a millimeter right there. That recess is doing its job. And make it a little tighter. There you go. And the bearing still spins. You can hear that. There you go. So now that's a perfect button. Still want to clean this up a little bit. Make sure these buttons are round. It's got a little bit of a wobble in there. But I'll clean that up with a sander. No problem. Just hand sand it. I'll take these buttons back off. And just usually if you give it a little twist and pull. There you go. And then you can take a screwdriver for the other one, put it in there, and then kind of hold it off the ground and tap it. That'll usually come out. Go. So all I was doing was holding a screwdriver over it and tapping it like that to pop that out. So now we've got one set of buttons. Now what we're going to do is we're going to bring this over to the spray booth and we're going to spray them up. I typically like to put it on a piece of plastic, something like that. This way it does not stick. And again, I like to use the Rust-Oleum triple thick glass-like glaze. Give it a little shake-a. I am using a cardboard box to catch the overspray. And I'm going to take the other spinner out of here. Make sure we don't back spray it. But here is the one that I did yesterday, the small Celtic spinner. It's got its first set of glaze on there. Looks nice. There you go. Get the edges. That's it. That's how you make spinner buttons. And that took less than 30 minutes. So hope you liked it. If you guys comment, like, share, do whatever you need to do on Facebook and YouTube so I can continue making these videos for everybody. I love making these fidget spinners and fidget spinner buttons and teaching everybody how to do it. I've got some cool videos in planning. So tell me what you want to hear. Tell me what you want to see in a new video and I'll see if I can accommodate everybody. Alright, thanks a lot. Make it a great one.